Feather Picking by the Bearded Chicken Man. It's around this time now that we are starting to experience feather picking in chicks. Feather picking is probably the most common form of cannibalism in chickens. Chicks that have been feather picked will show some deformity in feathering, man shyness, hysterical behavior, flightiness, and eventually lead to increased mortality. A common cause of feather picking in chickens is due to the marginal deficiencies of salt and calcium. This deficiency will lead to increased feed intake, which in turn leads to obesity. Obesity in chicks contributes to vent pecking and prolapse. Another common cause of feather picking is overcrowding, whether in the brooder or in the range. Allow adequate space, especially when they are growing. As they get bigger, move them to larger pens. Picking in general is a low-grade form of aggression in chicks, which can move into nervousness, then onto flightiness, and finally into hysteria. This is often the problem when you pen raise a clutch that is affected by feather picking. If left unattended, the stags and pullets often end up as man-shy, and a cloud of dust forms as you approach their pen. Hysteria has set in. Chickens that start off feather picking are in general harder to tame. The flightiness and hysterical behavior comes from being bullied in the range. If you observe the chicks that have been feather picked is usually down the pecking order, as feather picking is also a form of expressing dominance over other chicks in the flock. Boredom plays a role in picking, but light is a larger factor. With longer day length, more direct light, and open facilities, the incidence of picking increases. Using a heat lamp and allowing natural light in the brooder is better than using light bulbs to heat the chicks. Studies have shown that the bird sees in the ultraviolet range, and UV feather development patterns on the neck, back, wings, and vent coincide with picking incidents. Boredom along with light stimulation on these patterns may increase the picking. Inbreeding can also cause feather picking. Inbred birds usually but not always show signs of increased flightiness. Flightiness promotes hysteria, which also promotes aggression in the flock. Selection of individuals when breeding is vital. The cure. Allowing birds to forage through fresh-cut grass or bales of hay does wonders to reduce pecking. If the habit develops among chickens kept in strict confinement, it is usually difficult to overcome successfully. Letting the chickens outdoors usually affects an immediate cure. This is my experience. I've had immense difficulties with cannibalistic production in the brooder house, but losses always cease within a couple of days of moving the birds out to range houses on pasture. Of course, this is real free range, with all feeding and watering done outdoors, not the fake free range. Confinement operations surrounded by a lawn that some people use. Oftentimes, salt can cure or reduce the incidence of vent picking. The salt cure for stopping cannibalism is simply to use a tablespoon of salt in each gallon of drinking water for one forenoon, then 3 days later, repeat the treatment for another half day. The salt cure is said to work in perhaps 99% of cases under farm conditions. Several ingredients are utilized to control or reduce the incidence of these struggles. Sodium, potassium, magnesium, niacin, tryptophan, and methionine are commonly used to control and reduce the incidence of picking, nervousness, flighty birds. Feed form, primarily pellets, seem to have a higher incidence than mash feed. Just the simple act of wetting your feed to mash should decrease your incidence of feather picking. So in conclusion, the causes of feather picking are longer day length if free range, continuous artificial light in the brooder, crowded confinement, boredom, salt and calcium deficiency, and inbreeding or temperament issues. The cure. Allow birds to forage in the range. Use a heater lamp instead of a light bulb in the brooder. Allow only natural light to come in so as not to increase day length. Allow more space and decrease the population in each brooder or range area. When in confinement, use fresh grass, hay, or wood chips as litter. Give a teaspoon of salt in a gallon of their drinking water once every 3 days. Wet your feed as soon as you see feather picking develops. Add water to your pellets to make a slightly slurry consistency. And when breeding, be mindful of breeding principles. Select for temperate, among other things. Hope this helps you guys. For contents like these, hit like, subscribe, and comment.